Have you ever felt overwhelmed by the chaos of life, by events beyond your control, emotions that spiral out of hand, or setbacks that feel impossible to recover from? What if I told you that there is an ancient mental framework, over 2,000 years old, that can make you unshakable, not by changing the world around you, but by changing how you respond to it? This is Stoicism, a philosophy born in the marketplaces of ancient Greece and refined in the halls of Roman power. It's often misunderstood as a cold or emotionless way of life, but in reality, Stoicism is about mastering your emotions, not suppressing them. It is about building a mind so resilient, so prepared, that no external force can break it. At its core, Stoicism is a practical philosophy for living well. It teaches that the key to a good life is not pleasure, fame, or material wealth, but virtue, specifically the virtues of wisdom, courage, justice, and temperance. If you live in accordance with these values, the Stoics believed, you are immune to misfortune. The Stoic path is about recognizing the boundary between what we can control and what we cannot. As Epictetus, a former slave turned philosopher, once said, "We suffer not from the events in our lives, but from our judgment about them." That insight alone holds incredible power. The Stoics didn't just theorize, they lived their philosophy. Take Marcus Aurelius, the Roman emperor, who dealt with wars, plagues, betrayal, and personal loss, yet ruled with an extraordinary sense of calm and purpose. He wrote daily in what we now call meditations, a private journal of reflections that reveal a man constantly striving to live by Stoic principles despite the overwhelming pressures of leading an empire. Through his writing, we see how he returned again and again to the most foundational Stoic practice, focusing only on what he could control. One of the cornerstone ideas in Stoicism is the dichotomy of control. It teaches that we must distinguish between what is within our power, our thoughts, actions, responses, and what is outside of it, like the behavior of others, the weather, or the outcome of events. This mental filter is like a shield. It keeps you from wasting energy on things you cannot influence and helps you focus entirely on your choices and your mindset. When Epictetus was exiled, he did not see himself as a victim. He saw an opportunity to test his philosophy in the real world. Marcus Aurelius, grieving the loss of his children and facing endless war, didn't allow despair to poison his mind. They had trained themselves to stay steady through any storm. Another powerful Stoic technique is what the ancients called premeditatio malorum, or negative visualization. It involves deliberately imagining the worst-case scenarios: loss, illness, failure, not to dwell in fear, but to build resilience. Seneca, the Stoic writer and statesman, would regularly imagine losing all his possessions. Another powerful Stoic technique is what the ancients called premeditatio malorum, or negative visualization. It involves deliberately imagining the worst-case scenarios: loss, illness, failure, not to dwell in fear, but to build resilience. Seneca, the Stoic writer and statesman, would regularly imagine losing all his possessions. Another powerful Stoic technique is what the ancients called premeditatio malorum, or negative visualization. It involves deliberately imagining the worst-case scenarios: lost, illness, failure, not to dwell in fear, but to build resilience. Seneca, the Stoic writer and statesman, would regularly imagine losing all his possessions. Their mindset was forged in adversity. Instead of seeing obstacles as setbacks, Stoics viewed them as the very path forward. The phrase "the obstacle is the way" comes from this world view. Seneca once said, "A gem cannot be polished without friction, nor a man perfected without trials." Marcus Aurelius echoed that with, "What stands in the way becomes the way." They believed every hardship was fuel, every setback was a chance to grow. If you were betrayed, it was a chance to practice forgiveness. If you failed, it was a chance to cultivate patience or persistence. Pain wasn't the enemy. Cowardice in the face of pain was. But how do you manage emotions in the heat of the moment? How do you stay grounded when anger surges or anxiety creeps in? The Stoics taught emotional discipline, not the suppression of feelings, but the mastery of them. They recognized that while emotions are natural, acting on them blindly is dangerous. They trained themselves to observe their feelings with detachment. Marcus Aurelius wrote, "You have power over your mind, not outside events. Realize this, and you will find strength." This is the essence of Stoic strength, emotional responsibility. In a world that encourages impulsive reactions, Stoicism teaches calm reflection. And that reflection often happened through journaling. For the Stoics, writing was not a luxury, it was a weapon. Marcus Aurelius used it to remind himself of what mattered. Seneca wrote letters, not only to his friends, but to sharpen his own thinking. Epictetus' ideas were recorded by his student Arrian in the form of discourses and lectures. Stoic journaling is different from ordinary diary writing. It's a daily self-auditor place to ask, what did I do well today? Where did I fall short? What can I improve tomorrow? This habit of constant self-examination creates clarity and discipline. It grounds you in your principles, even as the world changes around you. Central to their worldview was memento mori, remembering that you will die. Far from being morbid, this was the Stoics' way of staying present. Seneca reminded his readers that life is not short, but we often waste it. When you live with the awareness that your time is limited, you stop wasting it on petty arguments, pointless grudges, or mindless distractions. You prioritize what truly matters. You live deliberately. Modern Stoics sometimes carry a coin or token to remind themselves of death, not to be gloomy, but to stay awake. Because the truth is, when you accept death, you learn how to truly live. And all of these ancient principles can be brought into our modern world. Today, we face new challenges, distractions from social media, endless comparison, digital anxiety. The Stoics didn't have smartphones, but their wisdom is more relevant than ever. Their advice would be to reclaim your attention, to focus on your actions rather than reactions, to detach from praise and criticism. You are not your follow account. You are not the opinions of others. Your worth lies in your character, not in your online validation. They would tell us to protect our time like a sacred resource. Seneca's writing, especially in On the Shortness of Life, is a wake-up call. We waste most of our lives on things that don't matter. The scroll can wait. The notifications can wait. But your growth, your values, your inner peace, those can't wait. The Stoics teach us to be intentional in how we use our days, to live, not by accident, but by design. So how do you begin? Start your morning with reflection. Ask yourself who you want to be, and what challenges might come your way. End the day with honest journaling. Train your body and mind with voluntary discomfort. Read the words of the Stoics daily, not just to admire them, but to internalize them. Speak mindfully. Choose gratitude, and always return to the core question: is this within my control? By following this path, you begin to develop a mind that is still in chaos, focused in distraction, calm in anger, and steady in adversity. You become someone who is not easily shaken by external events, because your strength is rooted deep within. And that, truly, is how this 2,000-year-old philosophy makes you mentally unbreakable. The modern world has glamorized the idea of chasing passion, pursuing every fleeting emotion, and following your heart wherever it may lead. But the Stoics saw this differently. They believed that to be mentally strong, you must live not by passion, but by principle. Passion, to them, wasn't a good thing. It was a dangerous force that could cloud judgment and distort reality. When Epictetus spoke of passion, he wasn't talking about motivation or excitement. He was referring to unregulated desires and emotions that overpower reason. And so, the Stoic life was built on the pursuit of rational clarity, using logic and virtue as your compass, not moods or impulses. This might sound rigid, but it's actually deeply freeing. Because once you stop being a slave to your emotions, you begin to move through life with a quiet power, undisturbed by chaos, immune to flattery or insults, guided by a steady internal compass that no external event can shake. It is this kind of inner order that allowed Stoic leaders to remain calm during revolutions, personal losses, and existential threats. Marcus Aurelius, in the face of betrayal and invasion, reminded himself daily that other people's actions were not his concern, with his own response. That no matter how unfair or painful a situation seemed, he still had the power to meet it with virtue. That's why his meditations is filled with reminders like, you can commit injustice by doing nothing, and, if it is not right, do not do it. If it is not true, do not say it. He was constantly recentering himself in the middle of chaos, and in that practice, we find something revolutionary: emotional stability through ethical consistency. Now, Stoicism doesn't promise that you won't feel pain. You will. It doesn't say that you won't face injustice. You will. What it does promise is that no matter what life throws at you, you can choose to respond with dignity, calm, and strength, and that power is unshakable. The Stoics were obsessed with this idea of turning pain into power. They believed that adversity wasn't just something to endure, it was a tool for transformation. That's why Seneca wrote, "Difficulties strengthen the mind, as labor does the body." If your life is too easy, too comfortable, you grow soft emotionally, mentally, spiritually. But when you face hardship and meet it with courage, you grow strong. The Stoics weren't masochists. They didn't seek out suffering for its own sake, but they understood that without trials, the soul does not deepen. One of the most powerful lessons Stoicism teaches is how to deal with failure. Not just superficial losses, but real, soul-crushing failure, the kind that makes you question your worth. The Stoics would say, failure is feedback. It's reality knocking on your door. And instead of denying it, or running from it, you must confront it. Ask what it's teaching you. Ask how it's shaping you. Epictetus reminded his students that we don't control outcomes, we only control effort and intent. If you acted with virtue, even in failure, you have not truly failed. If your heart was aligned with wisdom, courage, justice, and self-control, then the result, good or bad, is secondary. That mindset, once internalized, changes everything. It gives you the strength to try again, not recklessly, but intelligently, humbly, and with resolve. This philosophy also extends into how we treat others. The Stoics were not detached from humanity, they were deeply connected to it. Marcus Aurelius often reminded himself that he was a part of the whole, that all human beings were connected, and that we must approach others with empathy and patience. When you wake up in the morning, he wrote, tell yourself, the people I deal with today will be meddling, ungrateful, arrogant, dishonest, jealous, and surly. Not as a cynical outlook, but as a way of preparing the mind. He added, they are like this because they cannot tell good from evil. Therefore, it is your job to be the example, to live the Stoic values, no matter how others act. You are responsible for your character, not theirs. And this doesn't mean being passive. Stoicism is not about tolerating abuse or injustice. It's about meeting it with the appropriate response, one that is thoughtful, grounded, and principled. Seneca believed that anger was a form of temporary madness, and that nothing good came from it. So instead of lashing out, the Stoic way is to pause, breathe, and act with clarity. The more you do this, the stronger your internal foundation becomes. And over time, people will notice. They'll see that you don't get rattled easily, that you stay calm under pressure, that you carry a kind of presence that isn't common in today's reactive world. That's the Stoic presence. That's what it means to be mentally unbreakable. Now, let's talk about the long game, how Stoicism applies to ambition and goal setting. The Stoics didn't reject success. They simply redefined it. For them, success wasn't measured in money, status, or fame. It was measured in virtue. Did you act with wisdom? Were you courageous in the face of fear? Were you just, even when it cost you? Did you master your desires and impulses? If the answer was yes, then you succeeded, regardless of how the world judged you. This doesn't mean you shouldn't have goals. It means your goals should be aligned with your values. It means you pursue achievement, not for validation, but as an expression of your discipline, your effort, and your excellence. That subtle shift makes a massive difference, because now, even if the world doesn't reward you, you still win internally. You are fulfilled by the process, not just the outcome. There's a reason modern entrepreneurs, athletes, soldiers, and thinkers are rediscovering Stoicism. It's because, in a world flooded with comfort and noise, this philosophy brings focus and grit. Ryan Holiday, one of the key voices in the modern Stoic movement, often reminds us that discipline equals freedom. And that's precisely what the Stoics knew. When you train your mind, you become free from fear, from ego, from distraction. That freedom is priceless. That freedom is rare. That freedom is worth everything. The Stoic path is not easy. It demands reflection, restraint, courage, and responsibility. But it offers something extraordinary in return: a mind that cannot be broken, a spirit that cannot be shaken, and a life that is not lived by accident, but by design. So if you want to be mentally unbreakable, don't look outside yourself. Look inward, train your character, sharpen your reason, and walk the Stoic path, not someday, but now. So what does it look like to live as a Stoic in the 21st century? It's not about togas and ancient scrolls. It's about waking up in the morning and choosing to own your day instead of letting it own you. It's about noticing your emotions without letting them hijack your behavior. It's about setting goals and chasing excellence but not letting success or failure define yours. It's about controlling your reactions, because that's the only thing you ever truly own. A Stoic in our time is someone who can walk through the storm and not flinch, who can be surrounded by noise and still hear their own inner voice. A Stoic lives with intention, not impulse, with values, not vanity, with calm, not chaos. The beauty of Stoicism is that it asks for nothing from the world. It doesn't demand perfect conditions, wealth, or praise. It only asks that you bring your best self forward. You could be rich or poor, powerful or unknown, healthy or ill, and still live the Stoic life fully. Because it's not about what you have, it's about who you are. The Stoics believed that no external force could rob you of your inner freedom unless you gave it permission. That's the ultimate power. Not dominance over others, but mastery over yourself. Think about how rare that is today. Most people are ruled by moods, by headlines, by the opinions of strangers on a screen. Their peace is fragile, entirely dependent on whether things go their way. But Stoicism offers an alternative. It says, anchor yourself in what you control. Practice self-discipline, not as punishment, but as liberation. Choose courage over comfort. Choose effort over excuse. And above all, choose character over chaos. Every single day presents you with a choice. Will you be reactive or reflective? Will you act with purpose or be pulled by distraction? Will you grow stronger or give in to weakness? The Stoics would say, this is where your freedom lies. Not in controlling the world, but in choosing how to meet it. There is a quiet strength that comes from living this way. It's not flashy, it doesn't beg for attention, but it radiates from those who've done the inner work. You can feel it in someone who speaks with calm even when provoked, who listens more than they speak, who does the right thing even when no one's watching. That is the Stoic mindset, not for show, but for life. And yes, it will take effort, it will take daily commitment, but that's the point. No one becomes unbreakable overnight. Like any craft, mental strength is built one small decision at a time over years, over decades, through trial, failure, reflection, and growth. That's why the Stoics journaled every day. That's why they meditated on death, trained in discomfort, studied their faults, and refined their actions. Not to be perfect, but to be prepared, because life will test you. You will lose things you love. You will face moments of doubt, fear, grief, and injustice. But with Stoicism in your heart, you won't be defined by those moments. You'll be forged by them. And you'll meet life not with panic, but with presence, not with resentment, but with resolve. That is the true reward of this ancient path, not just survival, but transformation. So as we close this journey through Stoicism, ask yourself not what you've learned, but what you will live. Will you begin to draw that line between what you control and what you don't? Will you practice presence instead of distraction, virtue instead of vanity? Will you build that unshakable mind, day by day, until nothing external can move you? If the answer is yes, then congratulations. You've taken the first step toward becoming something rare, something real. Not just another person reacting to life, but a person responding to it with wisdom, with clarity, and with purpose. A person who is mentally unbreakable. Because in the end, Stoicism is not about being cold or emotionless. It's about being clear, conscious, and committed to living well, no matter what. And in a world full of chaos, that is a revolutionary act. What sets the Stoic apart from the average person is not just knowledge, but practice. Stoicism is not a set of ideas you read once and forget. It's a daily discipline, a way of living that transforms how you respond to every challenge, every success, every failure. The Stoics believed that philosophy wasn't something for the classroom, it was a tool for life. And like any tool, it has to be used regularly, sharpened continuously, and carried with intention. One of the simplest yet most powerful practices they taught was the habit of reflection. At the end of each day, ask yourself, what did I do well? Where did I fall short? Where did I act with wisdom? And where did I react with emotion? This act alone done consistently begins to separate the reactive mind from the reflective one. Marcus Aurelius did this every night. That's what his meditations were. Not a book for others, but a journal for himself. A personal dialogue with his own soul. That's the level of self-honesty Stoicism demands. Not to shame yourself, but to shape yourself. Each evening becomes an opportunity to improve, not in grand leaps, but in small, consistent corrections. Maybe today you got irritated too easily. Maybe you avoided something hard. Maybe you acted with ego. But that's okay. The goal is not perfection. The goal is progress. With each failure acknowledged, you move closer to clarity. With each moment of restraint, you grow stronger. But Stoicism is also about action. The Stoics didn't just sit around thinking, they moved. They acted decisively. They faced fear. They got involved. Because to be mentally unbreakable doesn't mean to retreat from the world. It means to face it fully, armed with clarity and principle. Epictetus said, "Don't explain your philosophy, embody it." And that's the real challenge. Can you live it when it matters most? When someone disrespects you, can you respond with calm? When something fails, can you move forward with grace? When you're overwhelmed, can you return to the present moment and act from reason, not reaction? One of the most misunderstood aspects of Stoicism is the concept of amore fati, love of fate. It doesn't mean passive acceptance, it means radical ownership. It means embracing everything that happens as fuel for your growth, even tragedy, even loss. The Stoic says, "This is what life has given me, so I will turn it into something meaningful." And that mindset is powerful beyond words. It's the difference between being broken by life and being built by it. It's how ordinary people become extraordinary, not because they avoided pain, but because they turned pain into purpose. We live in a time where attention is fractured, values are blurred, and distractions are endless. But the Stoic mindset cuts through all of that. It's the razor of discipline, clarity, and virtue. It's choosing not to be seduced by every impulse. It's the courage to live by your highest ideals, even when it's unpopular. And perhaps most importantly, it's the resilience to keep going, no matter what. This philosophy, 2,000 years old, is more relevant now than ever, because our battles are no longer fought with swords, they're fought in the mind, against anxiety, against comparison, against apathy. And the Stoic is the warrior of the inner world, calm, clear, unshaken. That's who you become when you commit to this path not once, but every day. So now, we've walked the path of Stoicism from the foundations of its ancient wisdom to the practices you can use right now to become mentally unbreakable. But this journey isn't over. In fact, it's just beginning. Because philosophy, real philosophy, isn't something you finish, it's something you live, day after day, choice after choice. It's in how you wake up, how you speak, how you carry yourself, how you respond to the world. You don't need to memorize every quote from Marcus Aurelius or Seneca to live a Stoic life. You just need to remember one thing: you always have a choice. A choice to respond with wisdom instead of rage. A choice to act with discipline instead of impulse. A choice to live with courage instead of fear. The world will keep testing you. People will disappoint you. Plans will fall apart. Life will hand you moments that seem unfair, overwhelming, even unbearable. But the Stoic doesn't crumble. The Stoic adapts. The Stoic endures. And in doing so, the Stoic transcends. So as you step away from this video, don't just think about Stoicism, become it. Carry its strength into your struggles. Let it shape your character. Let it sharpen your mind. And when life comes at you hard, remember, no one, not fate, not failure, not fear can break you, unless you let them. Stand tall, stay grounded, and live like a Stoic.